So the goal is 60%. Now, this is a graphic that I don't know if anybody has heard of HealthBridge, the first HIE in the country. They've got virtually every physician practice on board. They've got virtually every hospital, every lab, and they've got everybody on board. And I kept going back to them over and over and over again because they did this way before other people were off the ground. And I said, how did you do this? I don't understand. How did you do this? So that the CEO shows me this map and graphic. And he showed it to me in the second quarter of '05, and I grabbed it and I said, can I have it? Because I saw he had the secret in this graphic. The green line is physician logins onto their health information exchange. And the yellow line is the clinician logins, and then the red line up at the top is your administrative. And what happened in the second quarter of '04 is they hit critical mass. That's what happened. And back then, they didn't have a lot of EMRs, even very few practices, so they had started with what they called the EMR Lite, and they just gave it to the physicians for free. What happened was in the second quarter of '04, it jumped up dramatically. And then you see everybody going up. They hit critical mass, and that's the goal. You have to figure out what in your community is what is critical mass of physicians, and how do we get the hospitals to understand we're all moving the physicians along. And once you get adoption, that's how you get to critical mass, and that's how you get to financial sustainability. Now, the two applications that get you to critical mass is clinical messaging, moving the data from point to point, and then inquiry, the ability to look up data from multiple sources, multiple hospitals. The classic example is if someone goes to an emergency room, no matter which emergency room they go to in the region, they can collect that data from that patient. If you can get to critical mass, if you can get those two functions in place, then you can get to this point. And this is really important because when you listen to Janet Marchabroda talk about those quality, to get incentives, and she described what's required, you have to be able to have your EMR meet standards. It has to be exchanged to a health exchange, and it has to be able to do quality reporting. So this is the box that the feds are saying you have to get to. And here's how an HIE does it. If you can get the data flowing in your region, then you can now provide data to physicians for analysis. You can now do public health analysis through biosurveillance. You can now start feeding your personal health record. You can now do academic research. You can now do clinical trials. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the goal. This is where everybody's going, but you've got to get to those other steps before that. So that, I believe, is the task for you to figure out, is how do we organize our region, how do we bring all the stakeholders on board, and how do we make sure that the physicians are a very essential component to that. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.